Come in. Well, Mrs. Van Lyden, what can we do for you today?
Miss Cho tells me you've had a hard day.
How's your lawsuit coming along? Stephen Cord consented to take it for you?
Surely you've heard he advised against that.
Well, I wouldn't let that stop me. There are a lot of young attorneys in Peyton Place.
No. No, it was good advice.
Well, why do you accept the word of one of our local attorneys? As a matter of fact, it seemed rather odd to me that you picked Stephen Cord in the first place. Slander and libel are rather special legal fields. I'm sure you must know many eminent attorneys in Boston and New York who would be very happy to come to your assistance. That is, of course, unless you pick Stephen Cord purely for show.
Dr. Rossi, I acted impulsively. Not that I wasn't provoked. We both lost our tempers. But now that mine is back under control, well, of course there'll be no legal action. That's what I came here to tell you.
Well, that's your decision. Frankly, I'm a little disappointed. I would like to see you answer publicly for the last couple of months of your husband's life.
I had hoped that we could shake hands and start over. You know, it's really funny. You know, I haven't got one friend left in the world. They're all like you. The shock of Phillip's death and the manner in which it took place turned them all against me. My friends like people who are amusing.
I should think a rich young widow could be very amusing.
But I'm not a rich young widow. Phillip wasn't able to leave me a penny.
How inconvenient.
Phillip's death was much more than inconvenience. Much more.
Yes, it was. The world lost a genius and all he might have accomplished.
And I lost a husband.
I see no reason why you couldn't get another. I mean, the lovely young widow in distress.
You heard me out. But what I said meant nothing to you, did it?
Yes, it has. For some reason, you'd rather not have me as an enemy. All right, Miss Van Lyden. If you'll excuse me, I have a very busy day.
That's it. Now put your hand over like you're feeding him the ice cream. Hold it now. Lick your lips. Smile. Look natural. Take a big breath.
Hi, Dad.
Oh,
Dad, holy smokes. What are you doing anyway? Sipping cider?
Sipping cider. You just ruined a prize-winning picture.
Oh, Matthew, no! Oh, Matthew. No. Take you and get you cleaned up, darling.
My. Come on, dear.
Get you out of the line of fire.
Just one more, Connie. Hold it.
No, Dad, not with ice cream on his head.
There. That'll be a dandy.
Bye-bye, dear. Oh,
But not as good as the one you ruined. Now, I got to time this for 1 minute. 60 seconds exactly.
Well, you got some new apples, eh?
What were you doing at the courthouse?
I was trying to find out something about Eddie Jacks. Except none of our policemen have been around long enough to remember him.
Oh, they'd have been too young the time he left town.
You must have known, though. What was he like?
Oh, he was a glad hand. You know, you go in the pub, not just good evening, what's your pleasure, but big wink, big slap on the back, regular glad-handed.
Chandler, a pretty good way to run a friendly bar without buying any free drinks.
Oh, Eddie wasn't tight, not with his friends. No, sir. The drinks ran free. Ada used to complain you couldn't make a profit running it like a private club.
Well, maybe most of the profits didn't come over the bar.
Yeah, there was a lot more going on around there in Eddie's day. Time's up here.
Huh? Yeah, that's it.
Go.
No,
Go.
that's it. Who's that? You said there was a lot more going on. What do you mean by that?
Oh, there used to be a rumor of shady business going on in the back room. And no wonder with the friends he kept. They weren't the kind of fellas that liked to work for a living.
No? Well, maybe he was a fence for stolen goods or some other sort of illegal activity. He befriended that Jack Forrest, you know. And a scum like that wouldn't come to a place like Eddie Jack's unless he was sure he was going to get a welcome.
Yeah, there was a lot of talk like that when Eddie was there, but nothing you could ever pin down. No, he kind of gloried in letting people think that he lived on the shady side of the law.
Yeah? Like people who think he was worse than he was?
Yeah, he's the kind of fellow who'd run out in the snow to tell a lie when he should have stood in bed with the truth. Poor Eddie.
Yeah. You got any idea why he up and left her like that?
Oh, I guess they were just quarreling.
No, that's nothing new. I mean, a guy that leaves his bride a newborn baby in one night and then never turns up again. I mean, there's got to be a reason.
Since when do the Eddie Jacks of this world need a reason for dumping their responsibilities?
Put the car away, Weber.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Peyton.
Oh, hello, Betty. Why don't you join me in here?
Mr. Peyton. Why is Adrienne here?
Well, I hope you weren't rude enough to ask her. The lady of the house should be more gracious to her guests.
She isn't my guest, and I want to know why you invited her here.
But you do know, Betty. Adrienne is the widow of an old friend of mine. Her European trip failed to erase the memory of her recent tragedy. And I thought that in the sympathetic atmosphere of our home that...
That's a very convenient excuse, but that isn't why you invited her here, and we both know it.
Well, you seem to have reasoned it out quite differently, with your own feminine logic.
Mr. Peyton, you never told me about your close friend, Dr. Van Lyten's death. And you never once mentioned his poor bereaved widow until after we'd had our showdown. And then all of a sudden, it was the jeweler bringing trinkets and mysterious visits to Boston, and then Adrienne herself with enough clothes to last for a 2-year visit. And then a great need to be consoled, preferably by my husband.
I told you that if you stayed with Stephen, you begin to think like Stephen. That you see everything in terms of yourself, as a personal attack aimed solely at your destruction.
The destruction of my marriage.
But that's absurd.
How could you believe that Stephen would respond to anything so obvious? You dangle a jeweled toy in front of his eyes, and he's supposed to be so fascinated he forgets everything else.
Poor Betty. You are concerned, aren't you? If I thought that Stephen had really shown this adolescent interest for Adrienne, I'd be genuinely surprised. I never would have predicted it.
Oh, Stephen couldn't care less. I'm beginning to think he's right. You are getting a little childish in your scheming.
Yes, my Boston lawyers told me about Stephen's efforts. But he'll only make a fool of himself if this comes up in court. I am not incompetent. And my will, though a bit unusual, will stand up in any court in the land. But as for Adrienne, well, I admit to a certain self-interest in my invitation, but you chose your side, Betty. You left me quite alone.
Mr. Peyton, you're not going to break up my marriage.
Preview from the continuing story of Peyton Place.
What are you trying to do? Put Dad in jail and me on welfare for what? Just to prove that you're the only good guy in town?
If we're going to be on opposite sides of the courtroom in this matter, I doubt if it's wise for you to be calling me like this.
How much do you want? 50,000? After all, in your distant and colorful past, you always knew the financial pedigrees of your gentleman caller.